A successful black man in his 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, clutches his chest as sharp pains shoot through his body. He stumbles through the glass doors of Metropolitan General Hospital, sweat beading on his forehead, his breathing labored. This is Marcus Thompson, CEO of one of the largest healthcare networks in the country, but tonight, nobody knows who he is. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead as he approaches the reception desk, where a middle-aged white woman with perfectly styled blonde hair barely glances up from her computer screen. "Excuse me," Marcus says, his voice strained. "I'm having chest pains and shortness of breath." The receptionist, Janet Morrison, continues typing without looking up. "Do you have insurance?" she asks coldly. Marcus fumbles for his wallet, pulling out his premium insurance card, but Janet's eyes narrow as she takes in his appearance. A black man in expensive clothes must be suspicious, right? "This looks fake," she says, tossing the card back at him. "We'll need to verify this, and there's a $500 deposit required up front." Marcus's eyes widen in disbelief. But before he can respond, Dr. Richard Hartwell, the head of emergency medicine, appears, a tall, silver-haired man with an air of entitled superiority that fills the room. "Is there a problem here?" Hartwell asks, his gaze immediately dismissive as it lands on Marcus. "This man is claiming chest pains, but his insurance looks suspicious," Janet reports with a smirk. Dr. Hartwell barely examines the card before shaking his head. "We can't treat everyone who walks in here claiming an emergency. If you can't provide proper documentation and payment, I suggest you try the county hospital across town." The irony is thick in the air. Marcus Thompson owns this hospital, but they're about to turn him away based on the color of his skin. But here's where it gets interesting. Marcus doesn't reveal his identity yet. He wants to see how far this will go. "Doctor, I'm having serious chest pains," he insists, his voice becoming more urgent. "Isn't there some kind of oath you took about treating patients regardless of their ability to pay?" Dr. Hartwell's face reddens with indignation. "Don't lecture me about medicine, sir. I've been practicing for 25 years, and I know when someone is trying to scam the system." The waiting room falls silent as other patients, mostly white, watch this confrontation unfold. Some look uncomfortable, others seem to agree with the doctor's assessment. An elderly white woman whispers loudly to her companion, "You can't be too careful these days." A young black nurse named Sarah Williams watches from behind the nurse's station, her heart breaking as she recognizes the familiar pattern of medical racism she's witnessed too many times before. She wants to speak up, but she knows challenging Dr. Hartwell could cost her job. Meanwhile, Marcus's condition is genuinely deteriorating. His face is pale, sweat is pouring down his forehead, and his left arm is tingling. These are classic signs of a heart attack, but Dr. Hartwell is so blinded by his prejudice that he can't see past the color of Marcus's skin. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you can't provide proper payment," Hartwell declares loudly, ensuring everyone in the waiting room can hear. "Security will escort you out if necessary." Marcus looks around the room, his hospital, his staff, his patients, all watching as he's being denied basic medical care. The security guard, a burly white man named Tom Bradley, approaches with his hand on his radio, ready to call for backup if needed. This is the moment that will change everything, but nobody in that room knows it yet. Marcus reaches into his jacket pocket, and for a split second, everyone tenses. What is he reaching for? But instead of his CEO identification, he pulls out his phone and begins recording. "I want to make sure I have this on record," he says, his voice steady despite his pain. "A doctor at Metropolitan General Hospital is refusing to treat a patient experiencing chest pains because of insurance verification issues." Dr. Hartwell's eyes flash with anger. "You cannot record in here. Security, remove this man immediately!" But Marcus continues speaking into his phone, his words measured and deliberate. "I am experiencing classic symptoms of a cardiac event, and I am being denied treatment at a hospital that receives federal funding and is required by law to provide emergency care." Regardless of payment ability, the crowd watches in fascination as this confrontation escalates. Some people start pulling out their own phones, sensing that something significant is happening. Dr. Hartwell realizes he's losing control of the situation, and his voice becomes more aggressive. I don't care what you think the law says. This is my emergency department, and I decide who gets treated. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a scalpel, because what Dr. Hartwell doesn't know is that he's talking to the man who actually owns the entire hospital system. Marcus's chest pain intensifies and he stumbles slightly, catching himself on a chair. Even as his body betrays him, his mind is razor-sharp, documenting every moment of this discrimination. Nurse Sarah can't stand it anymore and steps forward. "Doctor, shouldn't we at least check his vitals?" But Hartwell snaps at her, "Get back to your station, Williams, before you join him outside." The threat hangs in the air like toxic smoke. But then something unexpected happens. Marcus's personal assistant, Jennifer Chen, a sharp Asian-American woman in her 30s, comes rushing through the hospital doors. She's been looking for Marcus everywhere after he didn't show up for their late meeting. "Mr. Thompson," she calls out, her voice echoing through the waiting room. "Sir, are you all right?" "I've been worried sick." The name Thompson doesn't immediately register with Dr. Hartwell, but Janet at the reception desk freezes. She's seen that name on countless hospital documents. Jennifer rushes to Marcus's side, her professional demeanor mixed with genuine concern. "Sir, we need to get you medical attention immediately," she says, then turns to Dr. Hartwell with fire in her eyes. "This man needs treatment now. He's having a cardiac episode." Dr. Hartwell looks confused by this well-dressed professional woman defending the black man he's been trying to remove. "Ma'am, this person has been unable to provide proper insurance verification, and frankly, his behavior has been disruptive," Hartwell explains, trying to maintain his authority. Jennifer's eyes widen in disbelief. "Unable to provide insurance? Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" But Marcus, even through his pain, places a hand on Jennifer's arm. "Let them continue," he whispers. "I want to see how deep this goes." Jennifer understands immediately. Her boss wants to experience the full scope of this discrimination before revealing his identity. The waiting room has become a theater, and everyone is watching this drama unfold. Dr. Hartwell, feeling challenged by Jennifer's presence, doubles down on his position. "I don't care if he's the president himself. Without proper documentation and payment, he's not getting treated in my emergency room." The words hang in the air like a challenge to the universe itself. Nurse Sarah Williams has had enough. She's watched too many black patients receive substandard care, and she can't stand by anymore. "Doctor, the EMTALA law requires us to provide emergency screening regardless of payment ability," she says, her voice trembling but determined. Dr. Hartwell whirls around to face her, his face purple with rage. "Nurse Williams, you are out of line. I am the attending physician here, and I make the medical decisions." But Sarah doesn't back down. "With respect, sir, refusing to examine a patient with chest pain symptoms is a violation of federal law and medical ethics." The confrontation between the nurse and the doctor creates a ripple effect through the waiting room. Other staff members start paying attention, some nodding in agreement with Sarah, others looking uncomfortable with the challenge to authority. Marcus watches this internal hospital drama with fascination, seeing his staff's true colors emerge under pressure. Jennifer pulls out her phone and starts making calls. "Yes, I need to speak with the hospital administrator immediately. This is an emergency involving discrimination and potential EMTALA violations." Her professional tone and obvious connections start making some of the hospital staff nervous, but Dr. Hartwell is too deep in his prejudice to recognize the warning signs. "Ma'am, you can call whoever you want, but this man is not receiving treatment in my department without following proper protocols," he declares with the confidence of someone who believes he's untouchable. The security guard, Tom Bradley, shifts uncomfortably. He's starting to sense that something is very wrong with this situation, but he's caught between following orders and his growing unease. Marcus's condition continues to worsen, and even through his determination to expose this discrimination, his body is demanding medical attention. Sweat drips from his forehead, and his breathing becomes more labored. Jennifer notices and becomes more frantic. "He needs medical attention now. Can't you see he's having a medical emergency?" Dr. Hartwell shrugs dismissively. If it was a real emergency, he would have gone to a hospital that accepts charity cases. The callousness of that statement sends shockwaves through the waiting room. Several patients look horrified, while others nod in agreement. An older black woman in the corner starts crying, probably remembering her own experiences with medical discrimination. A young white college student starts recording with her phone, sensing that she's witnessing something historically significant. The divide in the waiting room becomes a microcosm of America itself. Some people horrified by the injustice, others comfortable with the status quo, and most people somewhere in between, unsure of what to do. The waiting room transforms into a battleground of American attitudes toward race and class. Mrs. Eleanor Whitman, an elderly white woman clutching her pearls, whispers loudly to anyone who'll listen. These people always try to get something for nothing. The doctor is just protecting the hospital's resources. Her words cut through the tension like a rusty knife. But Maria Gonzalez, a middle-aged Latina woman waiting with her teenage daughter, stands up and faces Mrs. Whitman. "That's a human being having a medical emergency. How can you be so heartless?" The two women stare at each other across a chasm of racial and generational divide. Meanwhile, David Kim, a young Korean-American medical student doing his rotation, watches in horror as everything he's learned about medical ethics crumbles before his eyes. He approaches Dr. Hartwell tentatively. "Doctor, shouldn't we at least do an EKG to rule out cardiac issues?" Hartwell's response is swift and brutal. "Student Kim, if you want to graduate from this program, I suggest you focus on learning from experienced physicians rather than questioning their decisions." The threat is clear, and David steps back, torn between his conscience and his future career. But the tide is starting to turn as more people realize something is fundamentally wrong with this situation. Pastor James Robinson, a dignified black minister who brought his wife in for her dialysis treatment, approaches Marcus with quiet dignity. "Brother, I'm praying for you," he says simply, then turns to address the waiting room. "We are witnessing an injustice that goes against everything this country claims to stand for." His words carry the weight of decades of experience with discrimination, and several people in the room are moved by his quiet authority. Dr. Hartwell, feeling his control slipping, makes a critical error. "Reverend, I appreciate your concern, but this is a medical facility, not a church. We have procedures to follow." Pastor Robinson's eyes flash with righteous anger. "Doctor, healing the sick is God's work, and you are failing in your sacred duty." The religious dimension adds another layer to this confrontation, making some of the hospital staff visibly uncomfortable. Nurse Sarah Williams finds her voice again. "Pastor Robinson is right. We took an oath to first do no harm, and refusing treatment is causing harm. Dr. Hartwell is now facing a multi-front challenge to his authority, and his response reveals the depth of his character flaws. I will not be lectured by a nurse, a minister, or anyone else about how to practice medicine in my emergency room." The word "my" hangs in the air like a neon sign, because if Dr. Hartwell only knew the truth, this isn't his emergency room at all. Marcus owns every square inch of this hospital, every piece of equipment, every salary that gets paid. The irony is becoming almost surreal. Jennifer Chen continues making phone calls, and her conversations are getting more urgent. "I need the chief medical officer here immediately. We have a situation that requires immediate intervention." Her professional connections are starting to mobilize, and you can see the wheels of institutional power beginning to turn. Tom Bradley, the security guard, pulls Dr. Hartwell aside and whispers, "Doctor, maybe we should just do the screening examination. This situation is getting out of hand, and there are a lot of people recording." But Hartwell's pride and prejudice have taken complete control. "Bradley, are you questioning my medical judgment too? Just do your job and maintain order." The security guard's discomfort is visible as he realizes he's being asked to enforce discrimination. Marcus, despite his worsening condition, notices every detail of these interpersonal dynamics. As a CEO, he's learned to read people, and what he's seeing reveals the true character of his staff under pressure. A turning point comes when Dr. Amanda Foster, a young white emergency physician who just finished her residency, arrives for her shift and immediately assesses the situation. She takes one look at Marcus, sweating, pale, clutching his chest, and her medical training kicks in. "This patient needs immediate evaluation," she announces, moving toward Marcus with a stethoscope. Dr. Hartwell blocks her path. "Dr. Foster, this individual has not completed proper admission procedures." Amanda stares at him in disbelief. "Richard, he's showing classic signs of acute coronary syndrome. We need to get him on a monitor immediately." The confrontation between the two doctors becomes a clash between old-school prejudice and modern medical ethics. "Dr. Foster, I am the attending physician, and I am ordering you to step away from this patient," Hartwell commands. Amanda's response sends shockwaves through the emergency department. "I cannot and will not follow an order that violates my medical oath and federal law." The battle lines are drawn, and everyone in the waiting room realizes they're witnessing something unprecedented. A doctor refusing to follow another doctor's discriminatory orders. The hospital administrator, Robert Sterling, finally arrives, a nervous man in his 40s who immediately senses the explosive nature of this situation. Jennifer Chen intercepts him before he can speak to anyone else. "Mr. Sterling, we have a serious problem here involving discrimination and potential EMTALA violations." Sterling looks around the crowded waiting room, sees all the phones recording, and realizes this could become a public relations nightmare. He approaches Dr. Hartwell with obvious anxiety. "Richard, what exactly is happening here?" Hartwell, still confident in his authority, explains his position. "We have an individual claiming chest pains who cannot provide proper insurance verification, and I've made the medical decision that his condition doesn't warrant emergency treatment." Sterling's face goes white as he processes the legal implications. "Richard, you know we have to screen everyone regardless of payment ability," he whispers urgently. But Hartwell is too deep in his position to back down. "Sterling, I've been making medical decisions since before you got out of college. I know what I'm doing." The administrator realizes he's dealing with a doctor whose ego has overridden his medical judgment and legal obligations. Marcus watches this institutional panic with the detached interest of someone who understands organizational dynamics. He knows that Sterling recognizes the legal liability, but is afraid to directly confront Hartwell because of hospital politics and the doctor's seniority. It's a perfect case study in how institutional racism persists, not just through individual prejudice, but through systemic failures of leadership and accountability. Jennifer continues her strategic phone calls. "I need legal counsel here within the hour. We're documenting potential civil rights violations and medical malpractice." Her words carry through the waiting room, and you can see the hospital staff beginning to panic as they realize the magnitude of what's happening. Dr. Foster makes another attempt to treat Marcus. "Sir, please let me check your blood pressure and heart rate. It will just take a minute." But Dr. Hartwell physically steps between them. "Dr. Foster, I am giving you a direct order to step away from this individual." Amanda's response is firm and clear. "I cannot comply with an order that puts a patient's life at risk." The standoff between the two doctors becomes the focal point of everyone's attention. Pastor Robinson begins organizing the other people of color in the waiting room, creating an informal support network. "We need to be witnesses to what's happening here," he says quietly. "This brother's struggle is all of our struggle." His words resonate with Maria Gonzalez, who starts translating for some Spanish-speaking patients, helping them understand the significance of what they're witnessing. The waiting room becomes a microcosm of civil rights activism, with people documenting, supporting, and bearing witness to discrimination in real time. Mrs. Eleanor Whitman, the elderly white woman who had been supporting Dr. Hartwell's position, begins to look uncomfortable as the full scope of the discrimination becomes undeniable. Even she can see that a man having chest pains should receive medical attention regardless of his race or insurance status. Her internal conflict represents the struggle many Americans face when confronted. With the reality of racism, it's easier to support discrimination, in theory, than when you're watching someone suffer in front of you. Marcus's phone buzzes with text messages, his board of directors, his chief of staff, his legal team all trying to reach him for their scheduled late-night meeting about the hospital's expansion plans. The irony is almost cosmic. While he's being denied medical care, there are dozens of powerful people wondering where the CEO of the hospital system has disappeared to. Jennifer notices his phone activity and realizes they can't wait much longer. Marcus's condition is deteriorating, and his absence from the board meeting will soon trigger a hospital-wide search. She makes a decision that will change everything. She calls Marcus's chief of security, a former FBI agent named Michael Torres. "Mike, I need you at Metropolitan General immediately. Mr. Thompson is having a medical emergency and is being denied treatment due to racial discrimination." Torres's response is immediate. "I'm 5 minutes away. Keep him safe until I get there." The cavalry is coming, but will they arrive in time? The hospital's glass doors burst open as Michael Torres strides in, an imposing Latino man in his 50s with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. His eyes quickly scan the room, taking in the situation with professional precision. He spots Marcus immediately and moves toward him. But Dr. Hartwell intercepts him. "Sir, unless you're a patient, you need to leave this area." Torres looks at Hartwell with the kind of stare that has intimidated international criminals. "I'm the chief of security for the Thompson Healthcare Network, and that man you're refusing to treat is Marcus Thompson, CEO and owner of this hospital system." The words hit the waiting room like a thunderbolt. You could hear a pin drop as everyone processes what Torres just revealed. Dr. Hartwell's face goes through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, and then dawning horror as the full magnitude of his mistake becomes clear. Janet at the reception desk starts frantically typing on her computer, pulling up employee databases and executive information, her hands shaking as she confirms what Torres just announced. "Oh my God," she whispers, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He really is the CEO." The waiting room erupts in gasps, murmurs, and the sound of phones capturing every moment of this incredible revelation. Pastor Robinson shakes his head with a mixture of sadness and vindication. "Lord have mercy. They refused to treat their own boss because of the color of his skin." Dr. Foster immediately moves to Marcus's side. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to get you the medical attention you need right now." But Marcus, even through his pain, makes a decision that shocks everyone. "No, Dr. Foster. I want Dr. Hartwell to complete his medical assessment first. He was so confident in his diagnosis. Let's see him finish what he started." The challenge hangs in the air like a sword of Damocles. Dr. Hartwell stands frozen, realizing that his career, his reputation, and possibly his entire future have just evaporated in the span of 30 seconds. Sterling, the administrator, looks like he might faint as he calculates the legal, financial, and public relations catastrophe that's about to engulf the hospital. Security guard Tom Bradley steps back, wanting no part of what's about to happen. Nurse Sarah Williams approaches Marcus with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry. I tried to speak up, but I was afraid of losing my job." Marcus looks at her with genuine warmth despite his pain. "Sarah, you showed more courage and medical ethics than anyone else in this room tonight. Your job is not only safe, you're getting a promotion." The contrast between his treatment of the nurse who tried to help and his attitude toward those who discriminated against him is striking. The final moments are both triumphant and sobering. As Marcus is finally wheeled into the emergency room for proper treatment, Dr. Hartwell faces the consequences of his actions. "Dr. Hartwell," Marcus says as he passes, "consider this your notice of termination. Your medical license will be reported to the state board, and you'll be hearing from our legal department." The man who thought he was untouchable discovers that racism always has consequences, even when those consequences are delayed. Janet at the reception desk is also terminated on the spot, her discriminatory behavior captured on multiple phone recordings that are already starting to appear on social media. The waiting room, which had been divided by race and class, is now united in witnessing justice being served. Mrs. Eleanor Whitman approaches Pastor Robinson with tears in her eyes. "Reverend, I was wrong. I'm ashamed of what I said earlier." His response shows the grace that often accompanies true leadership. "Ma'am, Recognizing our mistakes is the first step toward healing.